You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
And welcome to the Meta Show. It is May the 16th, 2020. We're back again. We made it to another Saturday. We have a show ready for you guys. It's going to be interesting, maybe. We got all kinds of news. We got war news. We got Pearl Abyss news. We got Mittens on the BBC. We got a ton of news happening. And I think it's going to be a fun show. So, as always, I'm Brisker Ball, your host, whose earpiece has managed to screw itself up in the beginning of the show. And I'm here with the Matani. Hi, Mittens. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Well, we have a tradition to keep up now. It's a tradition that's now all of 2 shows, which was, of course, last time I was on the Meta Show. I spent the entire first section of things upgrading my rig. Where by upgrading my rig, I mean having catastrophic audio and video fuck-ups and not being able to have anything work. And so now it's Brisk's turn. But yeah, it's an interesting show. Like, we have a lot's going on. There might be kind of a Imperium deployment taking place right during the show today, and I'm sure we're going to have some people tuning in to find out what we're doing and where we're going. So that'll be fun. But yeah, let's see. So I'm gonna go ahead and start us off this week. Actually, I've just got recently I haven't really done much in the way of soapboxes because audio problems or me just being a scatterbrain or having a rant for later in the show. But actually something really cool happened. So last February, whereby last February it was actually in February, but it feels like, the before times, right? In the before times.
PC 19.
Exactly. There was the BBC. BBC decided that they wanted to get involved in podcasting. And so BBC Sounds, they wanted to do a whole series on gaming and gaming stuff. And they made this thing called This Game Changed My Life with Aoife Wilson and Julia Hardy. And they reached out to me and sent me to a studio near my house, actually, in like a professional, like the audio on this sounds really good because they sent me to like an actual professional, like a local TV and radio production thing, and asked me a bunch of questions about spaceships. And it was interesting because less about like me and things like that, but more like it essentially is probably one of the best ways I've heard EVE Online described for people who do not play EVE Online. So I'm going to do a little shameless plug here to support the thing and to feed my ego, I guess. So check that out if you guys like it. It was a lot of fun to do. And that's it for me and my rant. So having now dropped that link, Briska, what do we got over here?
Well, I want to plug yours too, because I listened to the whole thing, and I say it. We do story time with Uncle Mittens here on the show every once in a while, but going back and hearing some of the old school Goon Intelligence Agency stories, and a lot of the originals. I mean, that's the type of thing that. It's the type of thing that no other game has. We have this kind of rich history of stuff that was done in the game by players outside of the mechanics that people remember that are cool. And the fact that we have like this oral history of it, like a documentary about what's going on, that people can go back and listen and say, oh, that's the game that I play, that happened. That's cool. And I thought I just thought the whole thing was well done. It was just very well done, and I liked it very much. So I'm glad you did that.
They wrapped it. It was interesting because when I had no idea what the format of the podcast was going to be, because they basically just interviewed me for an hour, and then they like chopped it up into a whole bunch of different clips. And so I didn't realize that they were going to very professional. I guess it's not a surprise because it's the fucking BBC, but right. They really did a good job of like starting like when I was like a little baby wannabe spy master, and like Hogarden wouldn't let me actually found the GIA, and then our very first spy op against NORAD and Outer Ring. This is like before the Great War stuff involving like a login trap and a freighter, back when freighters were new. And then so it does a really good job of just sort of like introducing what the hell the game is about, and then going through, I'd say even the first half or so of the The podcast, maybe a little longer, it's just old school spy stories
Mhm.
before we even get to like Space Empire stuff or anything like that. So it was pretty cool. I was really kind of blown away, and it did bad things to my ego. It's almost made me feel guilty. It was a very strange thing. It's like listening to this, and I'm just like, I am a badass, and then I'm like, ooh, is this too much? I'm too much ego feeding. I don't know. But it was really cool. It was a great
funny.
experience. So,
I
yeah, that's
I
my
highly
thing.
recommend you watch. If you guys haven't heard it yet, go listen to it. Not during the show. Wait till an hour goes by, then you can listen to it. But it's really good stuff, and you'll appreciate it. All right, so we're back to a traditional meta show. We got a ton of news today, and Mittens did his thing. I'm going to do my rant. There have been a couple of things that I have noticed during the CSM election so far. And one of the things that has been driving me crazy is there is a tendency for us to use words in Eve in a way that they don't really mean what they're supposed to mean in real life. And that annoys me. Like, I don't like it when people misuse words, especially when we turn those words into conventional wisdom. So the word of the day that I don't ever want to hear anybody use again is stagnation. I hate that word. I think it is, as a concept, so dumb and so frustrating that we keep bringing it up that I'm banishing it from my vocabulary, and I hope that I will invite you to join me in banishing this word from your vocabulary. And why do I say that? In Eve, and I go back and I look at history. I've been doing a lot of reading when I was prepping for the CSM show a couple weeks ago, and just when I listened to the BBC podcast with Mittens, and I go back and I'm waiting for the next book, the next Eve Empires of Eve book. I go back and I look at a lot of this historical stuff. And like any other thing in real life, history repeats itself, the same as in Eve. And there are times and epochs and eras in the game that we constantly hear the same nonsense. I mean, the joke is Eve has been dying since 2004. But one of the things we constantly, every up and down and up and down and up and down, every time we're in a down, in a period between wars, we start getting the same narrative, the same collective wisdom, the same conventional wisdom saying, oh, we're in a period of stagnation. The game is stagnating. Eve is stagnating. Nullsec is stagnating. Nothing is happening. And the reality is almost every time we say that, it's completely wrong and not true. And that's what frustrates me. Everybody's saying right now, well, Nullsec is in a period of stagnation because we've not seen a major war between the empires in the last year and a half. You know what? Take a look at the map. Take a look at the fights that we're having every week like we're going to talk about now. In real life, the period between major wars is not called stagnation, it's called peace. We're in a period of peace right now, relatively, if that can ever be said in Eve. But it's not because the game is boring or there's nothing to do or the mechanics suck or this is that and all this other nonsense. It's simply because we're in the prep period, and I think that period is about to end. And I think, frankly, based on what I've been seeing, the number of fights, the types of fights, and we're going to go into this later during the Nullsec Power Hour, we have seen multiple fights over things that don't matter in the last 2 weeks. That tells me that there's some pent-up aggression, that folks are ready for a big fight, and obviously with the Jeff deploying and things like that, I think we're going to start seeing some major fighting in the next couple of weeks. That's not stagnation. That's not. It's just a period between major wars. That's all it is. And when we think back recently over the last, I don't know, 6 months, and Evis Nullsec is stagnating. Really? Well, the North looks completely different than it did last year. The Southeast looks completely different than it did last year. You've got Fraternity up in Tenal. That wasn't there last year. Deadco is gone. You have Conifers and French Connection holding the Northeast. Or Northwest. That's different. Mangoes was not a thing a year ago in the South. So we've got a ton of different changes that are happening. And there's always a period of Cold War between the major powers. There's constant skirmishing. There's fighting between Test and PanFam and the Imperium and all the different convoluted things. And sometimes Test is with us, and sometimes they're with PanFam. Sometimes they're shooting at whoever's there. You never know what's going to happen. So we got to stop saying stagnation because it's not true. The game goes through ebbs and flows like anything else, but it's not stagnating because you don't seem to think that there's a big war going on. So I am banishing that word from my vocabulary. I urge you to do the same thing. The fact is, there's always something going on in EVE. There would not be 40,000 people logged into this game on a Saturday afternoon if there was nothing happening. And that's what I find most frustrating, and that's what I wanted to talk about today. So that's my soapbox. I'm done. I'm tired of, I'm not going to complain anymore. I think we should go talk about something that everybody here really, really, really wants to know about.
Me too. But before we get to the things that everybody really, really, really wants to know about, I just think that there is a ebb and flow of warfare in EVE Online, and that between the big hot wars, the Cold Wars, they're not really cold because they're proxy wars. In the real world and in EVE Online, you see blocks fighting through their instruments and their sort of proxies, essentially, all across the galaxy. And there is this constant testing to see, essentially, like, imagine different fighters sort of trying to gauge the strength and like the fighting capability of someone before they actually like commit to something. And I think that maybe it's because of the current unpleasantness or what have you, but the fact that there was a 2,000 person fight over a Fortizar in Cache just the other day, like 2 days ago, and then last night we had this huge slap fight in JE. It was a blast. So, I think, in general, it's interesting because I'm going to segue us here to something that is interesting and not necessarily, oh my God, hunky-dory positive here. I think that EVE is in a very healthy place. I think that people are fighting. I think that there's a lot more engagement. I think that people are, there's a lot more conflict, a lot more exciting things. But I want to move us back. We have been working on the Meta Show, and whereby we, all credit for this really goes to Brisk and our producers, because I have been off doing who knows what, who knows where. We have been wanting to do a deep dive business analysis of what we have learned from the last couple of Pearl Abyss calls. Now, the last quarterly report from Pearl Abyss looked like everything was fantastic. Like, CCP was making all this new money. The Korean launch was a big success. And based upon the previous report, we learned a whole bunch of interesting things. But now we've found out something different. So, Brisk, why don't we let's pierce the corporate veil and find out what was really going on all this time.
I think that's a great idea. So I want to hearken you back to the before times, as Mittens calls it. This was February of 2020. The Meta Show did a Pearl Abyss Investors Call special, and we talked about how in the fourth quarter of 2019, CCP, or at least EVE Online, had its best quarter since Pearl Abyss bought the company. They had apparently earned 15.6 billion Korean won. That's a lot of money. It's something like $15 million, which is pretty good for a 17-year game in one quarter. And we thought that was great. And we talked about what that meant for the game. We talked about what that meant for EVE. We talked about how that meant that the EVE player base was resilient, and how great it was that even with the blackout and all the concerns we had about subscriber numbers and people not logging in and everything, that we still fought back, and we launched the Korean localization, and we made a ton of money, and everything that we just said was wrong. Everything. Because fast forward to last week. In fact, I think it was Saturday or Sunday. We have a new call. We have the first quarter of 2020 call. And what do we find out? I'll show you. Here's what we find out. Boom. Quarter 4 2019, we were told that EVE's revenue for Pearl Abyss was 15.6 billion won. Come to find out, when we get the actual numbers, and these were released the other day, it actually wasn't 15.6, it was 12.4 billion. That is a difference of 3.2 billion won. That is $2.5 million, almost $2.6 million difference than what we were led to believe and what we were expected. And instead of that 15.6 being the best quarter that EVE had, full quarter that EVE has had since since PA bought the company, now we come to find out fourth quarter 2019, the first full quarter after the blackout, was the worst quarter that Eve has done since PA bought the company. So that tells me everything we thought, everything we had extrapolated was not true. And that frustrates me because I felt like we had finally put this blackout business to bed. Mittens, you said last time we talked, we're not talking about this anymore. It's done. We don't need to talk about it. It's not worth relitigating.
Oops.
Well, we kind of have to relitigate it because when you look at these numbers, which were not explained at all on the call, and that was another thing that frustrated me. I mean, granted, there's always, if you guys have ever been on an investor call, you will always see statements of, you know, we may go back and fix these. These are based on current numbers and projections, and they're not forward-looking, and any forward-looking statement shouldn't be meant to be indicative of future results and all that other kind of stuff. And they put all these caveats, so they're not going to go back and explain why they did it. So we don't know what the deal was. We don't know if they just guessed, if they just extrapolated based on past performance in fourth quarter, because typically fourth quarter is usually pretty good for Eve. It's Christmas time, people are buying stuff, they're buying their year subscriptions, or they're taking advantage of sales, all that other kind of stuff. That's what we would expect in Q4. But that's not what we saw. What we saw was a really bad quarter comparatively to every other quarter that Eve has had. Now, the good news is, if there is good news, I guess there has to be a silver lining, right, Mittens? There has to be a silver lining.
Eve is doing well now, which is good.
Exactly. So one of the things we saw was first quarter of 2020, assuming they don't revise these down, was actually pretty good. And it got the game back to where it needed to be. There was a 15.6 billion won increase. My headset is going crazy again.
I got you.
I need to fix this thing.
Yeah, what do you work on fixing this, and I'll herf some butters.
I'm done. It's fixed. I just gotta move my hand. I look like a crazy man.
You're much better at fixing things than I am.
I promise I'm not just getting relaxing or posing for you guys. I'm fixing my thing. The bottom line is, I don't want to relitigate the blackout, but I think we need to acknowledge, because we are a show that deals in facts, not emotions, despite what some people may argue, that everything we had said before about the blackout and the potential impact on the company and what it meant for Eve probably was wrong, because it looks like there was a lot more impact than we were led to believe, and the numbers had led us to believe before. Now, I think that throws into a sharper spotlight why the blackout was rolled back the way that it was, and why the chaos era has quietly gone away. And I think it's because, obviously, that type of shakeup, that type of solid, real shakeup of fundamental mechanics, I guess that's not something that the community can withstand.
Or not a shitty shakeup. Like having a shakeup of mechanics that actually results in good gameplay, that's one thing. But, essentially what we found out here, and the reason why if numbers are scary for you and you're watching this and you're going, ooh, why do they care? Why are they talking about finances and stuff like that? You probably should give a shit, though maybe you don't, because the survival of EVE Online depends upon profit. Like it or not, the game must make money. It must be successful as a business for us to continue smashing spaceships together. And it is important the next time that there is a grand idea of shaking up EVE that we understand the ground truth. Not, again, we have a bunch of thinkers here on the show, Brisk and I, and we don't really do the whole feelings are strange and alien, and I crush them down into a tiny little box and repress them and then vent them into Eve. Sorry, not sorry. But anyway, the point is that the next time that there's an argument about the blackout and the success thereof or whatever, all of the ideas of it being a good thing have now been proven to actually be wrong and bad and detrimental. So that's good to know. I don't know why they revised this downward. One of the things that was really interesting about this is we did get to see Noisy Gamer did, as usual. Noisy Gamer is Noisy Gamer sometimes, Nosy Gamer sometimes. It's depending on his Twitter handle. I'm gonna try to link this baby over here. A really cool article that I did, as usual, and I think Noisy is in chat here. He likes these segments, but we really want to see. The finances and the business stuff is almost like shitty computer analogy. I'm bad at computers, so it's going to be a bad analogy. But when we dive in, when we pierce the corporate veil in a lot of ways, it is like trying to get into hex and assembler code. We're really trying to see what is the core, the understructure on which Eve exists as a higher layer of abstraction onto. And if the under, if the layer of the business is not functional, then we will not have Eve. So this matters. And the next time that the player base has a fit of argument amongst ourselves about what is good in Eve and what is bad in Eve, we should be looking at the actual financials, because stripped of any feelings or any opinions about how things should be, the financials show you the ground truth, at least when the financials are accurate and haven't been revised downward randomly. Like when companies, at least in my world, like coming from like a background as a burger flipping equivalent of a white collar criminal defense staff attorney back in the day, when you see companies revise uh, after the fact, retroactively revising their financials downward, you got to stop and take a look and go, what the hell? Because this is not normally how these things go. Yeah. Bruce, if you can give us some context.
But the thing
here.
is, what frustrates me about it the most is this was an hour and a half long call. And Noisy, thank you for reminding. I mean, this is the thing. Noisy and I talk about this stuff offline all the time, and he almost invariably reminds me that the call is happening so I can hop on it. And we were complaining because they still do these calls on Flash. Like you need a Flash player enabled.
What?
I know,
I didn't know
right?
that.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, come on, this is 2020, guys. You got to get your stuff together. So we're sitting there and we're going back and forth during the call, and I keep waiting for one of the investors. Someone from J.P. Morgan has a question. Somebody from this group has a question. So Morgan Stanley has a question, and it's great. And they are asking these questions. Not a single person asked, "Hey, you revise your revenue numbers down for not just Black Desert, which they said was the result of an accounting change on how they handle console revenue." They admitted that. But they didn't say anything about Eve, and Eve doesn't have any console, revenue, so why would they have to change the numbers there? So they didn't explain any of that. Nobody asked. And I guess, hey, when you're talking about a company that made, $200 or $300 million in a quarter, you're talking about a difference of $2 million. It's kind of a rounding error. They're not really worried about it. But for those of us who are paying attention, yeah, we kind of care. We'd like to know, hey, why did this happen? And we're not going to get those answers, and that's fine. But I think it leads to speculation on our side, and that's why we're here.
I'm going to speculate. And so again, like baby questions, and you guys actually watched the call, so you might know this, but one of the things when we're like projecting revenue, are these actual, like when they had the numbers that they had to revise downward, was that based upon projected or actual revenue? And the reason why that matters is like a lot of times people will sub to Eve for like 6 months or 3 months or things like that. And if they cancel their subscriptions, how is that counted? Is the cancellation counted at the moment that they cancel? Is there like this time lag effect? We don't really know. I mean, my supposition, because like just from listening to our people in the Imperium complaining about the blackout and just, watching people outside the like little elite PvP small gang, super Eve warrior crew, a lot of people had long-term subscriptions that they canceled in protest. And I wonder if that was why they ended up having to revise things downward after the fact, because they expected that they would have revenue, and then when it came time, it wasn't there. I got nothing.
I mean, that's the thing. We can talk about it all the time, and it's frustrating to me when things are opaque like this. Because I think, honestly, we all want to know, for the reason that you've specifically said, we want to know how well the game is doing. We don't get subscriber numbers anymore. All we can go by is DAUs. And, I mean, Black Desert that game is different than Eve because PA is a publicly traded company, so they're more forthright about their numbers in that regard, and revenue and market spend and all kinds of stuff. And they treat Eve like it's just an IP that they make money off of. We don't get a lot of detail from them. And even on new stuff, like for example, the call was the first time that I had heard that we were going to get a release date for Eve Echoes. And they said, well, but you got to pay attention. NetEase will do that. They're the publisher. We're not going to talk about it on this call. Go listen to their call. So that's when we found out, all right, well, there's going to be a call. So now we know, in case you guys care, I don't know how many of you guys care about Eve Echoes, but there's going to be a live stream tomorrow, the 17th of May, where they're going to announce the launch date for Eve Echoes globally. So if you care about Eve Echoes, you want to play Eve on the toilet on your phone, check that out tomorrow. But back to the investor call, we don't get the level of detail about CCP and Eve's revenue that I think we would like to see, and it stinks. But at the same time, I guess, hey, I guess if you're watching this show because you care about Eve and you want it to succeed, and you're part of the community, we want to give you good information. So I felt like we had to come back and at least address the fact that we made a lot of suppositions, we made a lot of statements based on a number that was not real.
Fine. Everything was fine. Everything was fine. Actually, things were not fine. And I find this to be sort of validating because my instincts were, because as an all alliance leaders, after a certain threshold, have to pay attention to like the general health of the game. And most of what we have to be able to figure this out is, it's reading tea leaves. It's almost like an old school augury or something. Like you're having to, use tarot cards to say, oh, well, the online numbers was this. And if you look at Eve offline, it was that. And more people are playing or more fights are happening or the fights are too small. And,
what does this mean?
Exactly. It's kind of like astrology, really. Like we're trying to read the tea leaves and figure out what's going on. And again, the good news is that Eve is doing great right now. Like in terms of the tea leaves I'm reading.
By every metric we have, the game is kicking ass right now, which is good.
And that is fantastic. So the big reason why we need to dive into this, and we're almost done with this, guys, don't worry, is mainly if there is another Age of Chaos, if there is another situation where the tiny, small, not very profitable group of people that herfed all those blurps about how great Blackout was and how it was so wonderful, if those guys ever get the courage to stick their heads up again and start herfing blurps, now we know the facts, the actual facts, by which we can give them the finger and tell them to shut the fuck up and never talk about it again because it sucked, it was a bad idea, and now we know. So cool.
And yes, to the extent that the world is locked inside and we have to play video games because there's nothing else to do, I'm sure that is part of the reason why Eve is succeeding. But I'll tell you, if you look at just anecdotally, we have seen so many of the famous big old names of yesteryear starting to come back that it makes me think that we're kind of in one of those stages where it's been a couple years, people that had quit are trying to see if the game has changed a lot, and let's come back and see if it's fun again. And I think they're going to find out that, yeah, the game has changed a lot, and it's a lot more fun than it was just 4 or 5 years ago. But if you look and see, like UAX Death is back, he's running for CSM again. Major Silva is going to be on Talking in Stations tomorrow, which is cool. I haven't talked to Silva in forever. We Graf
I'm
was
fucking
back.
Flying in fleets. Like
right. Mittens was in a fleet. We're going to talk about that in about 10 seconds.
We'll get there. We'll get
there. The game is fun again, and the virus didn't make it fun, and the virus.
Yeah,
is
that's true. Like there's a lot of games you could play that
they could log it. Exactly. There's plenty of other games out there. God knows there's enough games out there. But, people are coming back to a 17-year-old game. Maybe it's not just because they can't go outside. I don't know. Maybe I'm spitballing. All right. We have a NullSec Power Hour. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. We need to get moving. So I'm going to push a button, and we are going to go do that. War. It's happening.
About time. It's about damn time. Okay, so I want to talk about. I'm just going to troll relentlessly here for a little bit to start things off. So as you guys can see from the show title, the most important thing we have to talk about in NullSec is the fact that Pandemic Horde lost their KEEPSTAR and KQK the other day.
I can't believe they would lose a KEEPSTAR. How could they do that?
I don't really understand why they had the KEEPSTAR there, but then one of their own people, they were trying to unanchor KEEPSTAR and KQK, and they one of their people had a freighter and scooped it up, and then I was very confused because then suddenly there's this kill mail of Pandemic Horde people blowing up a Pandemic Horde freighter with a Pandemic Horde KEEPSTAR in it, and then they're trying to claim that it was Goonstorm's KEEPSTAR, and we've never had a KEEPSTAR in KQK. I have no idea what
you're talking about. There was never a KEEPSTAR there.
Okay, so
let me throw the meme up because this is it. There you go.
I have let's just leave that up there for a bit. I have the sense of humor of a 5-year-old, guys. And so I'm going to tell the real story. Obviously, that was all bullshit. We did not. In fact, we lost a KEEPSTAR that we were unanchoring. We used a spy. So I'll tell the story for that in a moment. But I have to say the funniest thing for me after that was because the spy extraction went wrong, it also kind of went right, where we have just this tremendous trolling and about just a ton of memes of just gaslighting people, like just the most direct, no, there are four lights kind of situation that you can that you can imagine. So no, it's fun. So basically, the Imperium is redrawing its borders. We put the KQK Keepstar down a while back in order to aid in the glassing of tribute, which was like a year ago. And
Has it
we
been
have
that long? I guess it
it
has.
has. It is. Time is a blur. And one of the things about running a vast space empire, not just for myself, but for all of the people that are involved in the Imperium sort of management and organizational structure, is that it's very easy to lose things, right? Like this is kind of like, imagine like the Roman Empire, and you get a report that like in some province in like, I don't know, far flung like Dacia or something, which I guess wasn't that far away.
Transalpine Gaul.
Thank you. Wow, things are going badly there. And you eventually get this report and you're like, oh, so like we had this chain of Keepstars that was slowly sort of growing from Delve and Fountain into Cloud Ring and then into Pure Blind and then out into the border of Tribute. And we're like, okay, we forgot about it. We're like, it didn't get attacked. Nobody reinforced it. And then I guess it was like a month and a half ago, thereabouts. Again, time is a blur. But it was a matter of several weeks. We were like, okay, crap, we need to actually consolidate our things, because from a strategic perspective, you really do not want to have an easy asset for your enemies to attack, which is very difficult for you to reinforce, right? Like your interior lines of reinforcement need to be as short as possible. So it's very easy for the bad guys to hit your stuff, but very hard for you to drag ass out there and defend it. Then you're going to bleed money, material, and will. So we start unanchoring it and messing with the unanchor, and it's like unanchoring for a long period of time. And Jay Amazingness came up with a really cool plan, which was to basically use a spy to extract it. And we're like, okay, cool, we'll have a pandemic horde alt do it. And we evacuated the Keepstar before we started unanchoring it, and we lost it. Like that's basically the straight up thing about it is we lost the Keepstar. And so the main thing that's funny about it is just the absolute, I don't know why, like for some reason when I saw that, just it's the dumbest, I mean it's impact font, it's like just the dumbest fucking meme there. I cackled. Like it was like a couple days ago, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. I'm just sitting here in this chair at my little battle station, just howling like a 5-year-old, giggling like a madman at the stupid look on the Qui-Gon Jinn face of my Keepstar is dead. And also just people got so fucking mad about it.
It was so funny. I mean, it's just, when these guys go on Reddit and like, I don't know, every time I read Reddit, I kind of feel like, all right, everybody on here is trolling or it's tongue in cheek. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. But damn, some people are like seriously salty about this. And I just thought it was funny.
It was beautiful.
I mean, come on, Goons losing a Keepstar, no one cares. There's, what? We lost one, now we have 587,000 more.
Apparently it was our first one. I mean, according to Reddit, and this might actually be true because it's a very strange thing.
Is.
Like, I think it might actually be our first Keepstar loss. Like, I'm sure that the people that are keeping track of these things, but you would have thought that we would have because back in the day we would lose outposts when we would try to deploy them. Like this is just sort of like a thing that happens. And credit to whichever crazy like Sigger squad or group within Pandemic Horde was like poop socking this thing and like watching it like a hawk for weeks, because they were right there on the button to blow it up, and they did it right and they did it well. And one of the reasons why we know that they spent so much time and effort working on it was the moment that we came out and said, I don't know what you're talking about. We never had a Keepstar in KQK. That was a Pandemic Horde Keepstar. What just straight up the most obnoxious anti-truth, just complete bold
right down the memory hole.
Exactly.
It's just it's just funny because you're like,
they got so mad.
What are you talking about? It was great. I mean, it's just that's the type of thing that's fun. I mean, this feels like old school meta show now, where we get to herfs and blurfs and have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sign of Eve's health. Like the fact that there is a situation where everybody can get together and get like sort of butt blasted about something that's trivial. But again, like, it's a tough line to walk, because like there's trolling and like messing with people and, denying that the KQK Keepstar was ever ours. And like, that's fun to do in game. But like on the meta show, even if we label the meta show Horde loses a KEEPSTAR, you know, fair play to them. They did get it. They put a lot of work into it and they got it. And we had a lot of fun in the process of losing it with the spy hijinks and then fucking with them about it. So, you know,
Exactly.
I think at the end of the day, everybody enjoyed themselves.
I think that KEEPSTAR created more content than it ever did when it was actually in the game in Kick.
Oh, true.
So there you
Absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, that thing was basically just a staging area for the glassing of tribute, and that was essentially unopposed. So the KEEPSTAR itself, I think one of the reasons why it was essentially forgotten as like a sort of a hanging chat or something out there was mainly because it had never really been a focus of anything. And whoops, there you go. So
go.
that's
Exactly.
the what else we got? We got several other actual fights. We have
Yeah, I mean,
fights to talk
this
about.
is
Yes.
this is the thing that makes me laugh, and I was talking to ProGod about this earlier, and if you look, so there were two fights this week. There was a first fight that was in cash, that was basically essentially between Test versus Nulsechnaya Solupin over I think it was over a KEEPSTAR, not over a KEEPSTAR, it was over a Fortizar. Vindictive had a Fortizar in YE1 TAC in cash, and
Right.
everybody just for no apparent reason. And this is the thing, we've had a bunch of fights the last couple weeks where the conventional wisdom of nobody cares about structures, we don't fight about structures, structures are useless, they're cheap, nobody cares, we're not going to fight about them, that have generated like 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 pilot fights for no apparent reason.
It's really nice to see. Like these are like
You know?
those starting, like it's not a proxy war, but it's like the you can tell that galactically speaking shit is about to go down because there are so many people in space blowing each other up over, as you say, things that are nominally speaking, you know, like for example, a J-Attack Fortizar last night for Goonswarm and the Imperium fighting to defend that. You know, I mean, that is a useful Fortizar, but Fortizars are not that expensive. You can just drop more. It's not really like a big deal. But one of the things I sort of have this feeling, and unfortunately this is like a feeling or an intuition kind of thing, is that, you know, people are all together. We're looking for a distraction, and the sort of collective unconscious of New Eden seems to be aimed for, let's find an excuse to mash some spaceships together. I mean, hell, we're deploying to go to war in the Imperium like as we speak. Like our fleets are on the move doing stuff. So you know, it augurs well. Can you actually risk, I don't know this because I've been focused on like Imperium stuff, what, and also guys, if we're wrong in chat, please do say something here in chat, is what is the whole Test versus Nulsechnaya? Like the cache is so far outside, it's the opposite side of the galaxy from the Imperium. So like, what the hell?
So as I understand it, Vindy is basically trying to invade cache. They want to go do this. I think Blazing Buddy mentioned it in the chat that this was their staging fort for their cache invasion. And I think it was just one of those situations where they said, hey, you know, we're getting blobbed. These guys are trying to blow up our stager. Can you guys come help? And Tess said, okay. So they threw down. And then the other guy said, well, are you going to throw down? Well, we'll throw down. And it became a thing. And all of a sudden, you know, on a random Tuesday or whatever day it was, I can't remember what day it was. I have to look and see.
I think it was. I mean, it was Blur's Day. Every day is Blur's Day now.
Yeah,
right?
it was Friday. I mean, it was just like some random day of the week.
It was Friday in Eve time. It was Friday, but it was. I remember this was a thing that happened on
like Thursday night. So Thursday.
Because I went on a U.S. time zone op looking for a fight to defend a Fortizar, and we got blue balled because it was just fine. I'll take the Fortizar win. But that was my first time logging in as a line member to play Eve in my little sacrilege in a long ass time, and so that's how I remember. The reason why we didn't get a fight there was because on that Thursday,
right? It was everybody was over here for this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So essentially, you know, you've got two big groups of guys, and I mean, everybody was at this fight. You had Pan Fam and Fraternity, Panda Fam.
Everybody but us in the Imperium, basically.
I mean, that was it. Everybody but Init and Goons were not there, but you had all the Legacy guys were there on one side, and you had all the Panda Fam guys on the other side, and it was just a big boom fight. And about 100 billion worth of stuff killed. The Fortizar was saved, so op success to test, and a good fun time was had by all. But it was meaningless. It's not a big deal. It was over a structure that most people don't care about. It's a Fortizar. Who gives a shit?
According to Blazing Bunny here, was a staging Fortizar, which of course can be replaced. But if that's one that has everybody stuffing it, and they're going to be staging for invading cache, that's one of those things, guys. Like, you can say cache, you can say cache. It's very kind of confusing. It's kind of like how people pronounce Declan or decline. So I don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't live in cache. I've only ever been there. Okay, there we we
cache says. There you go.
Ooh,
it sounds French or something. So there you go. and it is pronounced Gila, by the way. That's the correct pronunciation. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. So let's see what we got here. Sorry, guys.
We talked about last night, right?
Oh, yeah, we had kind of a fight, didn't we?
We had another fight last night. So for those of you who are interested fans of the Meta Show and you want to know how the magic happens, we have a production meeting every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Freedom Time. I guess it's 6 p.m. Cheesehead, Wisconsin time. And we go over what we're going to talk about, the news stories, if we want to have guests, any other kind of stuff. So 7 o'clock rolls around and I ping out, hey guys, meeting time. I'm on a fleet, so this will be tough. And Mittens pings back, I'm on a fleet too. Maybe we should cancel this. And that was great. And I was flabbergasted because you don't play this game. You're not allowed to play this game. You're the Matani. You're not allowed to play Eve. Come on, that doesn't happen.
It is kind of funny too, because I'm plugging this podcast that was super cool at the start of the show here, and one of the things that they talk about in that BBC podcast is this whole thing about how I don't actually play Eve, I only play the metagame, which was certainly true back in the day, and it is very rare for me in general to actually log into the client. But I think we're all kind of itchy. We're looking to mash some spaceships together, and I recently upgraded my rig here, and I have a 34-inch monitor, and Eve is gorgeous on it. And I wanted to see some spaceship violence, and it was really kind of funny because I was also talking to Villy and Gobbins there, and there's a lot of I don't want to say e-celebrities because that's ridiculous, but big name Eve players were on the field. Pro God Legend tried to save his fleet, and good on him, and missed a warp, and his Legion got stuck, and we blew it up. And Gobbins was there. I saw Buddha on the field. It was really a rogues gallery.
We killed Headliner. We shot a lot of these guys. It was fun.
What was with, and so seriously, fight gossip here. What was with Headliner's fleet shooting test to start with? Because here's the thing: the Imperium was outnumbered. We're going up there and we're talking. We're probably we're gonna have a real tough fight here. This fort defense, we're gonna get outnumbered. It's too far afield. I don't really know. And then when shit finally starts going down, PL warps in, and the first thing they start doing is shooting test. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll take it.
I teased Headliner a little bit afterwards because he died. He was in a monitor, but I think he was FCing a Munin fleet, but he only had mid-grade snakes. So I asked him if he needed any money because I felt bad. You got to have high grades in your monitor if you got a Munin fleet. But I mean, man, it was fun. It was fun. Now, granted, it was life-sucking, crushing, soul-crushing tie-dye, but that's to be expected when you get 1,500 people in one place, especially on an unreinforced node, because nobody knew this. I don't think anybody expected that the fight was going to be as big as it was. I know we thought we were going to get a fight, but I don't think we thought we were going to get that big a fight. And the other thing is, it was funny. There wasn't. I thought there would have been a possibility of an escalation. We had brought carriers and dreadalts and stuff, and we dropped some of them near the middle of the fight, closer to the end, but there was no counter drop, which I was surprised at because I know that Alpha Star and the rest of the guys have dread caches in that area, but I guess they didn't. They decided not to use them. So
Yeah, I don't really know why that was. If they had deployed caps against us, we would have been in a much darker situation. But it's entirely possible that after those, I mean, what was it? Was it last week or again? Time is a blur, guys. I'm sure this is a problem for everyone. But there was that big ass dread fight that we talked about. I think it was a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah, that's right. It was the Friday. The Friday I went on vacation, so 3 weeks ago. Anyway, so it's entirely possible that maybe they didn't go with dreads because their dreads were depleted from that fight. I really don't know. I just turned up because I wanted to like fly a little spaceship and shoot some missiles and shot web.
that's cool. So. That's good. You guys were in sacrileges. You guys were in Baltec, right?
We had Baltec. It was like a last minute Baltec thing because we officially retired the Baltec doctrine, and then we were like looking at this thing and going like, actually, we really should bring battleships and send a ping in Elysium and ask people to see if they actually still had their Baltec even though it was retired. We had enough battleships just lying around, you dust them off, and there you go. So it was like sacrileges, Baltecs, and combat carriers, and so there you go.
We were in our new favorite doctrine of zealots, or as I say zealot because that's how you pronounce it. But then, of course, everybody in the alliance, including our favorite Irish FC Darkshines, say zealot, and I make fun of them every time that they say that. But I like flying because you know what? I'm a Caldera guy. I like missiles. Getting to fly in a Mar like laser boat, so I can fire my lasers. That's fun. I think that's cool, and I'm not used to, and I got a lot of good skins for that ship, so I was happy we were in Zealots instead of Munins or something.
I am, and this is a sign that I have the Eve brainworms, because instead of just like sort of smiling and nodding while people talk about like the mechanics of fights, I'm curious, why did you guys choose to bring Zealots when we were mostly fighting Munin fleets, given the whole like EM therm resist issue?
So we tanked them specifically to deal with that, but I think part of it is it's just something different, and I think that for us it was easier to bring that kind of a fleet because we knew we were facing Munins. And we can target. We basically have EWAR on those ships, so we can try to targeting range disrupt some of the units to make it harder for them to hit us. So we would be we would be in a slightly better optimal than they would be. And I think it worked. We traded pretty well, and I think overall, in the end, we ended up winning. I mean, not only did we achieve the objective, but we forced all the bad guys off, and we killed a bunch of units. And you know what? To my wife. My lovely and beautiful and amazing wife, who thinks I lose a ship every fleet, I did not lose a ship yesterday. Mark it on your calendar. I survived. That was amazing. I couldn't believe it, especially since everybody else died, that I was not targeted first. So there you go. It's not every day that it happens that I totally survive a fleet where everybody else dies. So there you go.
I have to say, this is the troll that keeps on giving, because we have so Horde guys that are popping into the channel and being mad about the title. I told the whole story about how you guys successfully blew up our Keepstar and explained how we were gaslighting you and driving you crazy about it. And so thank you for proving my point. You can look at the recording and hear the story from our side of how you did in fact kill our Keepstar and how we had fun lying about it and driving you crazy. But it really does sort of, it's the gift that keeps on giving for people that missed that and kind of like, oh, I'm so mad. It was actually a goon Keepstar.
I love it. I love it. And
does not get old.
Mittens, would you
Could you put the meme up again for them? For those guys?
Totally. Would you say that by us saying that Horde lost a Keepstar, are we engaging in alt-right propaganda tactics, a la Fox News?
Man, that old Mecca stuff.
I'm not saying his name. I'm not going to do it. I told my wife I wouldn't say his name anymore.
Oh, there you go.
But I had to make the joke because it's funny.
Yeah, obviously, Horde tried to tell us that they blew up a Goon Keepstar, but as everybody knows, Goonswarm has never had a Keepstar in KKK.
There's no Keepstar there. There was never a Keepstar there.
Just like we have no supers, our supers are still trapped in 93 PI ever since the casino war. We've never had a Keepstar in KKK, and Horde lost a Keepstar and blew up their own Keepstar. I don't know why. Why would you do that?
Yeah, totally AWOS their own Keepstar. I can't believe they're that bad. Jesus. Amazing.
Anyway. But no, seriously, for the people that came in late from Horde, as I was saying earlier, like fair play to you guys. We know that you put a lot of effort into camping that Keepstar and getting ready to blow it up or steal it. And we know that you put a lot of work into it because you're so mad that we're gaslighting you about it.
The best thing, though, I think Sadis had the best comment in the chat. He said, Goons have never lost a Keepstar, and we still have never lost a Keepstar.
Right,
because it was on a Horde character, so it's not on our kill board. So there you go.
Killboard
for some of the kill boards didn't happen.
So a couple of years ago, we did this thing when we were still living up in the Galactic Northwest, where Mortis Angels Moa was like Goons, and they lived in Pure Blind, and they were spending all their time like trying to talk about like how they're going to like bring the Imperium down and blah 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 blah. And just sort of like as a goat sacrifice before we went off to one of our wars, I forget which one. This is many years ago now. Boat got a character in a in Moa. He joined Moa on one of his characters in a Revenant, and then we all blew up the Revenant. So it's just for the sake of being jerks. And so this big ass Revenant kill turned up on Moa's kill board. And since they were relatively like small gang PvPers, like when you have a Revenant lost mail with your ticker on it, it does kind of ruin the numbers.
What are you doing?
Exactly.
Killing our narrative.
Beautiful.
I know.
Yeah, it was like in 2015 or something like that. It's true.
That just makes me live.
Yeah, good times. Good
so,
times.
all right, so to take it back to a meta level to talk about this, now granted, I hate fighting on Fortizar grids. I still think Citadels are amazingly overpowered, and they're just, I mean, like for example, look, you had 1,000-man fleets, and they could not kill these structures. We need to work on that before next season. So I think obviously the Citadel thing is an issue, but I think the good sign is, and we talked about this, and I'm going to keep bringing it up, I feel like there is a large amount of pent-up aggression that has been building in EVE, and I'm hoping and praying that it's going to spill over and something big's going to happen soon. So I think if we're having almost 1 trillion ISK battles over posses that aren't even on an R64 moon, they're just a Titan bridging posse. If we're having 2,000-man fights in cash over a staging Fortizar for a small group going into a region no one gives a shit about, if we're going to have random midweek fights that knock the Meta Show production meeting off because all of us who apparently, according to people, don't play the game are all playing the game together at the same time, that tells me that something good is happening. And even though we don't think structures provide content, they're not conflict drivers or whatever you want to say, in the end, all it takes for us to get a good fight or a big fight or anything in this game is people willing to do it. So I get the feeling right now that Nullsec is kind of like a barn full of really dry hay, and somebody's walking around with a lighter, and you never know what might happen. So
I have to give a shout out here.
Excited.
Like, I think that's a reasonable point. I've taken to watching Yintan, whatever the hell, however you're supposed to say his name, his like update videos, and I thought this most recent one for me was really good because he analogized the current nullsec situation in terms of block powers to the Three Kingdoms period and I guess the Warring States era in ancient China, which I'm not super familiar with, but in terms of like a three-way power structure and how that works in terms of the dynamics of who starts what wars and things like that. So I think one of the reasons why the proxy wars are so intense right now is because instead of having a more traditional, so EVE typically blocks are residing in the 4 galactic quadrants, right? And because Deadco collapsed and part of it folded into the Imperium and part of it folded into Legacy, you now have a situation where there are only 3 blocks, right? Which is a lot more interesting than a bipolar galaxy. We've had a bipolar galaxy before back in the Dominion Solve system, and I like this a lot better. But I think one of the reasons why you're seeing the intensity of these proxy wars is that none of the blocks really wants to be the first to start a block war, because then by nature the other 2 blocks will gang up against them regardless of who it is. So Jintan, shout out to him for his Warring States period metaphor. But we just deployed the Gunfleet Expeditionary Force, like our ships were streaming to their deployment zone while the meta show is going, and I just got the good word that our guys know where they're headed. And I was actually planning on saying on the fireside today who we were going to be attacking and stuff like that, but I read so many broadcasts from our various lovely enemies about how they totally knew where we were going and they were planning ops for it. And as usual, when I see that kind of thing, I decide, well, I just have to mess with these guys. So I've proceeded to not announce who we're shooting. I've proceeded to not say anything about it on the Meta Show, and I'm going to continue to not doing it because you're supposed to have a spy network, for God's sakes. On the other hand, if you knew you were going, if you were the target, if you were getting invaded, you would know it because there's like thousands of Imperium people on your doorstep. And so if you don't have to worry about that, then chill out, man. It's all good. Like we're going to be glassing somebody else.
There you go. If you don't see us in your space, you're probably safe. So there you go.
They wanted me to play Eve, man. They wanted me to play Eve online, and this is exactly. Things are going to happen now. So it should be kind of amusing, I think.
Look, I'll tell you, there is nothing more fun than when the Emperor straps on his nice armor and goes out there and starts taking shots. That's a good thing. I like it.
I am completely incompetent at EVE Online, though. I mean, one of the jokes that we've been making lately, I can't take credit for this. I'm not sure this is an Asher joke or somebody, is that FCs make the worst line members. And it's true because if you're an FC and you're flying in another FC's fleet, you're going to do your own special snowflake thing. You're going to like fit your ship a little different. And the same goes for directors and alliance leaders. Like I am an awful line member because I'm sitting there going like, I wish I was flying an anti-support ship. I'm going to go forget the primary. I'm going to go shoot this thing over here. I'm terrible, absolutely terrible, but it's funny and it's fun. So there you go. And that's EVE Online right now. It's funny and it's fun. Just like Horde losing their Keepstar in KQK.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what happened there, but it'll be okay. You got more Keepstars. Don't worry. You can come back from this. It's not going to be that bad.
I don't know how Horde's going to recover without KQK. It was a very, Horde staged in KQK quite a lot. Like it was a very big deal, very important strategic. No, that's absolute bullshit.
That rug tied the room together. I mean, come on. It tied the room together. I mean, come on. So there you go.
Oh my God.
All right, gentlemen, we have hit the 5 o'clock mark. It has been an hour, and I know that Mittens and I are both champing at the bit to go out and deploy our stuff so we can.
I got to catch up to our fleets.
Exactly, we got fleets to catch up to.
Yeah.
So we would like to say thank you all for being here. There'll be some news next week. CSM candidates come out on Monday. We got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. Looking forward to the next show. But thank you all for being here with us today. We hope you have fun. Go out there, play some Eve. Mittens, you got anything at the end?
No, I mean, other than war and purging, and I need to get in my little sacrilege and scamper down our jump bridge network to our target, which we're still not telling you what it is. Our guys have actually reached the staging system, so they know what's up. And yeah, so thanks for coming, guys, and thanks for deploying while we did the meta show, everybody who's in the Imperium and did do the deployment thing. So let's get stuck in, and we will see you next week.
There you go. Pine cones delenda est, and you stay classy, New Eve.